9 out of 10 Crystal Skulls agree. Click like and subscribe to the Heavy Underground. Ooh, that one skull, let me tell you. Since its release on November 18th of 2016, Metallica have spent the past 2 years consecrating their most recent masterpiece of heavy, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. In the midst of a multi-year globe-trotting trek, the current leg of the tour finds the band invading arenas across North America. Returning to Pittsburgh for the first time in just over 14 years, Metallica's Worldwide tour is primed to take full advantage of the newish, state-of-the-art faceless corporate arena downtown. It was, after all, the generally outdated and wholly undersized limitations of the old Civic Arena that kept the band's ever-increasing stage presence from the Steel City since 2004. With the most recent arena's opening occurring within months of the end of Metallica's last North American tour in 2009, the city has gone without since. Despite the long, nearly decade-and-a-half wait, a ravenous, sold-out crowd awaits the mighty Metallica. Foregoing the usual opening band, Metallica has enlisted the half-baked services of the Goat Boy himself, Jim Breuer, to host each night of the tour. Reaching Pittsburgh on October 18, 2018, Metallica bring their worldwide tour to the Steel City for a night of heavy excellence. Firing at a brisk clip, the extended intro to Hardwired patters through the speakers, initiating the ravaging 1-2 punch of Hardwired and Atlas Rise to open the show. This decidedly lethal combination has held true throughout the duration of the band's worldwide tour as a potent 1-2 punch. Both tracks issue forth from the band's latest album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, and showcase Metallica executing at an extraordinarily intense level in 2018. Setting the tone early, Kirk Hammett is loose, lethal, and having a great time, tearing into the guitar solos like a predator into his prey. Addressing the rapturous Pittsburgh crowd for the first time in over 14 years, James Hetfield lays claim to the mic to cue up the foundational classic Seek and Destroy from the band's 1983 debut. With over 35 years of muscle memory built in, the band tear through this track with timeless fervor as the crowd screams along. This thrash classic opens it up in the second half to eviscerate the audience, and the song's final go-round finds the crowd more vociferously vocal than before. A slow-burning build brings Wherever I May Roam to a roiling boil as the four horsemen of metal defiantly charge into the thick of this Black Album classic. Kirk's guitar soars in and out, around and about this world-traveled monster, settling in for what will be an extended survey of the band's 1991 worldwide phenom of an album. The Unforgiven winds its somber tale through the Pittsburgh night. With an acoustic guitar in his hands, James sings a sad, sad song as the band swells around him in forlorn unity. Some back and forth between James and the crowd follows, The Unforgiven, as the intrepid frontman readies the audience to be swept under by the modern crunch of Now That We're Dead. Drawn from the band's latest album, Now That We're Dead, spry riffs launch, twisting around on themselves as Kirk guides his solos around the peaks and through the valleys of this modern classic's forceful current. As has been customary throughout this touring cycle, Now That We're Dead descends into a primal four-man drum circle, with each member taking the stage with a floor drum of his own. Briefly allowing James to showcase some of his rhythmic ability, Lars soon returns to his kit to bring everybody back together to close the song with one last rousing go-round. The feedback had barely begun to fade on Now That We're Dead before the biblically brutalizing classic Creeping Death thunders through the arena. With the crowd loudly in their back pocket, Metallica tear through this 1984 classic with a destructive power. Kirk's lyrical guitar runs wail forth until the band shifts gears alongside the exuberant crowd during the drowning chants of Die, Die, Die. Robert's title-shifting bass laying a solid foundation as the band picks up again to close the song with a sweeping flourish. Taking to the microphone, Robert winds the crowd up as the band delivers a second dose of Ride the Lightning with the almighty For Whom the Bell Tolls. While the band sticks close to the surface and does not dive too far for deep cuts, the assembled horde relish in the staples after a 14-year drought. For Whom the Bell Tolls ends with a customary gnashing wail from the Ripper as the band retreats for a respite. As the band takes their brief break, an intro tape plays through the speakers, featuring a lonely bass line and distant guitar swells. This short interlude ensues until the band returns to the stage and the solitary notes to begin Welcome Home Sanitarium greet the audience. Building in intensity, Sanitarium winds gracefully through the arena until hitting full stride with commanding force. Heart-searing solos cut deep as this classic from Master of Puppets finds its way to a grateful audience. Up next, James introduces Mr. Trujillo for the portion of the evening referred to as Kirk and Rob's Doodle. Tapping into local sentiments, as has been customary for this studious pair of musicians, they begin their jam with a touch of Ah Leah by Donnie Iris, which quickly segues into a hard-hitting selection from The Shortest Straw. In tribute to the late Cliff Burton, Rob has dusted off his instrumental masterpiece Anesthesia in recent years, and the end of his and Kirk's nightly jam has been the opportune time to deploy this gleaming gem. Touching on the band's always present past, Anesthesia touches hearts and souls before everyone returns to the stage. Quickly launching into Whiplash, Metallica careen through this foundational thrash classic as the crowd heeds its marching orders. With unrivaled ferocity, Kirk tears through the solos, while James barks out the lyrics and Lars batters out the rhythm with rapid-fire destructiveness, like 1983 never ended. From the raging tendencies of Whiplash to the slow-burning groove of The Memory Remains, Metallica shift gears between eras with ease. Wistful nostalgia and hard-hitting reality combine on this bittersweet song from 1997's Reload, but the true magic plays out with an extended serenade by the crowd during the outro, which leaves Metallica on stage, soaking it in, the audience response for about 2 solid minutes. From 2016's Hardwired to Self-Destruct, the hard-hitting riff exposition of Moth into Flame is next. A logical sister song to The Memory Remains, Moth into Flame deals with the same deleterious trappings of fame and fortune that befall many talented individuals. An array of lighted drones take to the air during Moth into Flame, flying in synchronicity above the stage as the band powers through another modern classic. The effect is spellbinding and represents the band's continuing desire to bring an exciting stage show to their fans. Consistently impressive throughout the years, the crowd's non-stop vocal accompaniment is truly incredible to behold, and the crowd's sheer volume on new songs as well as old is both noteworthy and a testament to the band's enduring magnetism. A slow and crushing outro concludes Moth into Flame, with the revelation by James that it was improvised on the spot. Positive affirmations for the Metallica family follow as James takes to the microphone to address the crowd about good vibes and inclusivity. A few age-related jokes are in the offering before James yells out one of his iconic inquisitions. The crowd most certainly wants heavy, and the band dutifully delivers. Bringing a substantial dose of heft, James and the boys begin to stomp their way through Sad But True, a face-crushing classic from their 1991 album. The song's methodical heaviness slowly batters the crowd with steel-booted assurance. With a propulsive chug, Sad But True finds a willing audience to rage along with this timeless song. James closes out Sad But True with a deep-diving, shrieking and scraping guitar caterwaul. Within moments, a string of familiar dialogue from the 1971 film Johnny Got His Gun plays through the arena's speakers. With no lasers and without the usual bombast, the stark nature of one's grim message is truly left to stand on its own, allowing the song's deceptively serene opening to clash effectively with the song's weighty subject matter and scathing second half. Building to a raging, unstoppable roar, one lays bare the horrors of war and the toll it takes on its participants. Transitioning from the brutality of the physical battlefield to the pitfalls of addiction, Master of Puppets flies from the stage with driving force. Rob's bass hits with a nimble, hard-charging drive that would bring a smile to Cliff's face. Bittersweet melody builds to an end run of face-crushing riffs and final consequences. The PA cuts out briefly during Puppets, the first of several such moments to arise during the final few songs. Thanking the Pittsburgh audience, the band takes a brief break before the foreboding opening to Spit Out the Bone plays through the speakers. An expansive, modern thrash epic that closes Hardwired to Self-Destruct with vehemence. Spit Out the Bone has attained a level of notoriety amongst hardcore fans. Projecting a particularly belligerent profile from the stage, Spit Out the Bone demonstrates an unceasing dedication to the heavy hearts that has continued unabated for over 37 years. Despite a couple of brief cuts in the sound due to technical difficulties, the band tear a feral path through this modern raging classic. Having become the set-closing duo since Seek and Destroy's transition to an early show staple, Nothing Else Matters and Enter Sandman close out the night. Like a giant campfire sing-along, Nothing Else Matters brings the crowd together in unison to celebrate the night as one. Sending the crowd out on a high, the band's inescapable classic Enter Sandman quickly follows. As Nothing Else Matters' reflective qualities fade and the seething inevitability of Sandman roars to life, the crowd screams its approval, as well as every word. With a nod to the frayed ends of sanity, Metallica bring the set-closing Enter Sandman to an end. With their instruments set aside, Metallica paced the stage, greeting the crowd and saying their goodbyes. Patrolling the stage, Kirk and Rob dole out copious amounts of guitar picks straight from the gaping maws of red solo cups, baptizing the audience in plectrum plastic, while James creates demand by only tossing out the picks remaining on the microphone stands, and Lars doles out his used drumsticks from the night. Addressing the crowd one final time each, the boys in the band get the audience riled up one last time before making their exit, with James tossing his back pocket bandana to a fan in a final gesture before leaving. With a focus on an immersive concert experience, Metallica has always sought new ways to bring the crowd together in a celebration of music in general and Metallica in particular. Whether it's 2014's By Request tour that allowed fans to vote on each show's setlist, or holding an online contest to determine a local band to open select shows on last year's stateside stadium run, Metallica has always sought new ways to bridge the divide between band and fan. This year's arena tour is no different, boasting the talents of Saturday Night Live alumni Jim Breuer for a night of rocking frivolity. Mixing comedy, crowd interaction, and some behind-the-scenes shenanigans, Jim Breuer's knowledge of and friendly relations with Metallica makes for a loose and entertaining experience to start the night. With the audience focused on an open and exposed central stage, the performance dynamic joins the band and crowd together in a symbiotic celebration of loud and heavy. The rousing welcome when the band surmount the stage is a stirring testament to their message of unity through thundering volume. With a grin on his face, Kirk the Ripper Hammett slices through his guitar runs with a carefree malevolence, and General Hetfield commands his forces with a deftly understated guitar crunch, powerful voice, and domineering stage presence. With Lars acting as some grandmaster timekeeper, the band tear through a set heavy on Black Album classics, with Lars leading the charge at every turn with his distinct and expressive rhythmic style, while Rob's confident bass rumbles prominently throughout the band's potent attack. LED cubes raise and lower in unison, flashing topical images and iconography from the band's 37-year history throughout the show. Minimal pyro and a noticeable lack of lasers add to a stark and plaintive presentation. However, the rise and fall of the electronic cubes, in conjunction with expressive lighting and the judicious deployment of fire at strategic moments, add to the immersion and immediacy of the band's performance. The fairly wide-ranging set touches on the prerequisite classics: Master of Puppets, One, Nothing Else Matters, and that Sandman song, of course. A hefty dose of Hardwired to Self-Destruct was most definitely assured, and 5 songs in total were represented. Hardwired, Moth into Flame, and the raging thrash epic Spit Out the Bone were just a few of the modern classics played by the band tonight. The Memory Remains from 1997's Reload was a nice surprise, and Rob's touching nod to the late great Cliff Burton with a stirring rendition of Anesthesia marks a bittersweet moment of remembrance before the band launch into a neck-breaking charge with one of Anesthesia's Golden Age setlist partners, Whiplash. With a nod to the past and a firm footing in the present, Metallica deliver a rousing show for all fans. Whether casual or hardcore, our Metallic horsemen excel in the live setting, and each show offers a unique opportunity for a communion between band and fan. From James' familial interactions with the all-ages crowd to the audience's fervent vocal contribution, the power of Metallica was on full display this October 18th in Pittsburgh. An energetic performance from the band and an exuberant crowd response elevate the intensity as Metallica sonically lay waste to the Steel City.